Dear guests, good evening and welcome to our panel discussion about the higher tuition fees at the University of Zurich, in the Canton of Zurich, and in Switzerland in general. Today, we're going to find out whether we should understand such proposed policies as fair contribution to educational system or rather as a social barrier. We are very glad to welcome all of you here today. Thank you very much for coming. We know it's a wonderful day, sunny weather outside, but still you decided to come here today to visit this panel discussion to show your voice. Thank you all very much. We're also very grateful to our speakers that decided to dedicate their time, absolutely voluntary today, to speak with you, to engage in lovely discussion, and we are very happy that we managed to gather today such interesting and diverse persons from the whole political spectrum of Switzerland, from right to left, from educational perspective to economic one. And hereby, we would like to draw your attention to the Code of Conduct of the University of Zurich. We do respect different ideas, different approaches, different views. We do not discriminate anyone based on their belief, based on anything, and we will not tolerate any aggression against you, our attendances, or our panelists. And we ask all of you to respect these rules. Today, we also had to order some security services, as you all have seen at the entrance. If you want to support us, if you want to contribute to the free speech, if you want to also donate something so we can pay this huge bill for security, you can scan this QR code and help us. Thank you very much. But going back to our panel discussion, the main organizer of today's evening is Efficient Governance Initiative. We are pretty young student initiative at the University of Zurich. We advocate for good, innovative, and efficient solutions in governments, both in private and in public sectors, and you can find more about our organization by scanning this QR code. There was some misunderstanding. VW Susitha is not our co-organizers, but they helped us with some advertisement at the very early stage of our preparations. Well, speaking of our sponsors, it would have been absolutely impossible to organize this event with apero that is following after the discussion without our long-standing sponsors. We have three of them. It's ready.ch. They do help with preparations for your exams. We'll talk about it later. They also provided some stand with focus water that we give all of you today, plus some of their flyers. Also, we would like to point out our two long-standing partners, Academic Fraternity Zurich and Academic Fraternity Wydler, for their support. Thank you all very much for supporting our events. Now, I would like to give the floor to my co-moderator.
Thank you so much. So firstly, I would like to introduce us two, the two co-moderators. This is Archip Lovin, and he is the president of the Efficient Governance Initiative, and I am a member of the VW Susitha Education Policy Committee, and together we mostly organized this discussion. So, why are we all here today? It is because the Federal Council has proposed an increase of the tuition fees, and we are here to discuss it, which is why, firstly, we would like to say some basic information on the development of this policy. So it all started in 2025 when there was Entlastungspaket 27, which can be best translated as relief package of 2027, introduced, in which it said that tuition fees should be doubled for Swiss and tripled or even quadrupled for international students. And this relief package is basically a package which means to save money in different sectors. Yes, in different sectors, including education. Then there was some additional information published by the Federal Council, which was that there was about to be saved 120 million. However, at the end of 2025, there was a very big student demonstration, which is why the 120 million decided to be decreased to a 60 million. And the newest thing that happened was on the 17th of March, is when the savings goal, the overall savings goal of the Entlastungspaket was reduced by 40%. Then we would, of course, like to introduce some information on the students' opinion, specifically on how the increase will affect the students and what their current financial situation looks like. So according to publicly available information, 7 out of 10 students work part-time in order to financially support themselves. Additionally, a majority of students, of course, heavily rely on the financial support of their parents. In spite of that, the majority of students in Zurich still live at or below the poverty line, which is 2,300 francs per month. To be more exact, for the median for ETH students is at 1,997 francs per month, and it is at 2,253 for UZH students, so University of Zurich. So if the tuition fees are to be increased, they would further discourage many, many students from starting or continuing their studies, especially in those fields which have a longer study period, such as pharmacy, medicine, and law.
Well, there is a lot of public information available, so what's the use of meeting here today? Why we even decided to discuss this topic and to inform you, our students, about the potential increase? Well, over the course of past 3 weeks, we conducted our own research that roughly 300 students of UZH participated, and we found out that, surprisingly, 74% of students have little to no knowledge about the potential increase. At the same time, roughly 90% don't support such measures. We went further with our analysis, and we found out that, again, not surprisingly, groups that would be affected by the potential increase are those of lower income, households with lower income. And you can see it on our graph. Households with income lower than 90,000 francs per year report higher burden by such policies. We also analyzed some long-standing social cleavages, some social inequalities, structural inequalities, and we found out that students whose parents appeared not to have higher education degree will be affected more by such policies. Combine these two factors, we see a clear trend that students from poor families and from lower educated families will feel effects most strongly. We went further, and we found out that it will also have an impact on a gender inequality. It will produce bias against women, against female students, and they will be affected more. Plus, speaking of nationality, international students report higher burden due to the increase of tuition fees, also not surprisingly, because tuition fees, if were to be increased, would be increased more for international students. But nonetheless, more than half of Swiss students, domestic students, also report high burden as a result of such possible increase of tuition fees. Well, now we do have all of that information, how students feel about the potential increase, what do they know about it, and what are they going to do with such information. Well, we found out that additionally to the numbers that we already got, that 70% of students are already working part-time during their studies, 64% will have to increase their job time, plus they will have to extend study period. Some of students, namely 13%, even considering dropping out, or roughly 10% will move abroad to continue their studies there. As we can see, based on our information from a survey, the picture is not quite positive. Why is it like that? We decided to invite our esteemed speakers to discuss it, for them to share their knowledge, their insights with you, people that are directly involved in shaping these policies, and to enable, of course, after the discussion, some respectful dialogue where every one of you will have a chance to ask the questions directly and probably even affect these policies.
So now I will be introducing the speakers. We have a lot of important people here. Representing the university's perspective, we have invited the president of the University of Zurich, Dr. Michael Schaepman. Please come forward. Then we would also like to include the economical perspective, which is why we have invited the head of economic policy and foreign economic affairs responsible for education policy at Economy Suisse, Dr. Rudolf Minsch. Then we have also invited some politicians on both the cantonal and the national level. Firstly, we have a cantonal councillor from Zurich, from the party Die Mitte, and from the Committee for Education and Culture. Please welcome Kathryn Wydler. Then we also have a national councillor here, also from Zurich and from the party SP, who is the vice president of the Parliamentary Committee for Science, Education and Culture. Please welcome Min Lee Marti. And last but not least, we have another cantonal councillor from Zurich, but from the party SVP, and also a member of the Committee for Education and Culture. Please welcome Rochus Burcha. And finally, we would like to introduce the main moderator of the panel discussion, the Deputy Chief Editor of Nebelspalter, Dominik Feusi.
Let's start our discussion.
Yeah, ladies and gentlemen, nice to have you all here. Thank you for attending this discussion. It is an important topic, not only for you as students at University of Zurich or ETH, but for the country, for all the speakers, I guess. So I'm glad you are here. First of all, I want to start to ask the president of the University of Zurich what's going on now. We have all listened what happened in Bern. So there is in this Entlastungspaket 60 million francs, less money for the universities, for the tuition fees. So what does that mean for you as a president of the University of Zurich?
Well, thank you very much. Let me first start with a comment. I am a so-called second-generation immigrant, secondo, and my parents would not have been able to pay for my studies at the University of Zurich if tuition fees were substantially higher. So I'm very grateful that we have the opportunity to have very low-cost access to the university. Second point is, and I think that's very important, the University of Zurich has not increased tuition fee and has no intention to increase tuition fee. However, this decision is not totally at our discretion. So let's move on to what is called Entlastungspaket. Okay, the federal government has taken a decision to save money, and it was distributed across all the different sectors where you could save money, and one was education. Now, in the education part, we need to talk a little bit about the economies of scale. So the 60 millions do affect the University of Zurich, but in different areas. The most significant area would be the cutting of the Swiss National Science Foundation. So we assume if the Swiss National Science Foundation, where we are one of the largest, let's say, consumer of their grants, if there is a cut, we think internally we cannot compensate that by writing more or better proposals, because there is a distribution of the finances given. So that's by far the largest. The second largest cut is in the so-called base financing. Base financing is a contribution for those experts amongst you, it's called HFKG, will be given to universities all over Switzerland. So there we also have a substantial reduction. Now the smallest reduction we will have on tuition fee, and there is a very emotional discussion on what is the right tuition fee. Let me make two statements here. One, tuition fees have no finance model behind. So when you see numbers of tuition fee, there's nothing behind that says 15 Swiss francs go to this purpose, 200 to that purpose. The second point is looking at the economics of tuition fee, it is very simple. Tuition fee at the University of Zurich is 1.7% of our income. So we have 1,800 million turnaround every year, and roughly 30 million is stemming from tuition fee. Now, I mentioned already there's no business model behind tuition fee, so we can arbitrarily talk about making them 6 Swiss francs or 259.20 higher. So there's no, kind of scalable argument behind tuition fee. It's all about emotions. The second point that is very important is we saw the figures on the minimum living income for students. We estimated that at this university at around 2,300 Swiss francs, of which currently 12% the students have to pay for their studies. Now, out of this 12%, 6% are tuition fee costs. Now, let's compare two economics, right? At the University of Zurich, it's 1.7%, but you pay 6%. So if we would like to start to discuss an economic baseline on tuition fee, my recommendation is let's talk about the baseline, which is 1/3 of the current cost. Because then we would compare the two economies, how is the university financed equally with your living income, which means slightly less than 300 Swiss francs. I think that's the baseline where we should start discussing what is relevant for tuition fee.
Thank you very much. We will discuss that later on. Now, I would like to turn to mainly Marti, because she is a member of parliament who was in parliament when this Entlastungspaket was discussed. Can you tell the people how it went on, how it was? What was the thought behind this 60 million that ended up in this Entlastungspaket?
First, let me try to explain why we have this Entlastungspaket. Switzerland has a law that has a kind of a debt break. The idea behind it was that the debt should not increase. Now the interpretation of this debt break is a little, or we from the left think it's a little too orthodox, so that we do not keep the debt stable, but we try to decrease the debt. This is first. And then there is some appetite for more spending in defense and military. And so these new spendings will have to be paid for because we cannot make a deficit. That's the problem. And you have a lot of expenses that cannot be reduced because there is a commitment by law that we have to pay it, like pensions, for example. You cannot just cut the pensions because you want to. Law. Because it's in the law. So you have very few parts that you can actually cut, and one of them is education. The other is agriculture. And the other is development aid, humanitarian aid. And this parliament and this majority of the parliament will never, ever, ever cut anything in agriculture. Whatever happens, it will never, even though agriculture is probably even less of the Swiss economy than student tuition for the university budget. So this is one of the problems that we face in this discussion. So education and especially students don't have a big lobby in Bern, so it's also pretty easy to cut. There has been resistance from the universities, from wide parts of the education, so which led to the cuts being a little less than it was proposed in the beginning. But it's still a reduction, as was said before. So that's the kind of discussion that we have, and it's not. It's not an easy discussion. There was also talks about doing a referendum, so there could be a vote. There won't be a referendum because, the majority of us thought that there probably won't be a good chance in a vote because you have the students, you have the humanitarian aid. These are all things that are probably not that popular in the majority of this country, which I think is a shame, but that's just the way political reality is.
Mr. Schaepman, last question on what's going on now. Who is now going to decide what is this about, where the less money is going? So 60 million is a huge sum, but it is, compared to the whole costs of all the university, it is not very much. It's about 0.5%. So, but what's going on? What is the canton of Zurich deciding? What is you as a president deciding? What are you discussing among the other presidents of other universities, maybe together? Who is now going to decide what's going on?
So for the particular case of universities that are cantonal, it's different for federal,
Indeed.
so for EPFL and ETH. So for the cantonal universities, it is up to the discretion of the responsible board for the university. And in this case, it's what is called the executive board, Universitätsrat, who is in charge. Now, we currently, so if you think I'm looking a little bit tired, it's because we had 6 hours discussion today on how to finance in the university next year with the prospects of the Entlastungspaket.
So you can inform us directly what's going on.
So there are several aspects you have to consider, and I mentioned we have a lot of indirect effects which we cannot control, which is the success rate with the Swiss National Science Foundation. So that's the big scaler. The other ones, like tuition fee, they I don't want to be cited as a bean counter, but it's completely irrelevant as compared to other parts of the budget. So it's up to the discretion of the university to decide what to do. We would have to make a proposal that if we want to change tuition fee, and we have decided to not do that this year.
Okay, thank you very much. So now I'm turning to Rudolf Minch and asking him about what President Schaepman said about this baseline to compare what's going on. What is your take on the question whether these tuition fees are a social barrier or a fair contribution, and should they be higher or lower?
Just good evening. Just to have a word on the debt break. The debt break law at the federal level is a wonderful instrument. A wonderful instrument. It is the tasks of every person sitting in the parliament to spend money, and this gives the possibility to limit the natural tendency to spend a lot of money. And that's the reason is that we have the debt level at the federal level is just about 40% of GDP. And this is at the international level extremely low. So we do not have to pay a lot of interest rates on that. And for that, we can spend a lot of other things. Just to make it clear, we do not support tuition fees that are similar to that are paid in the United States. We do not want that. And this is around $60,000 up to $70,000 per year. You have to pay Princeton, Harvard, or at the best universities. And if you compare that with ETH is more or less number 11 at the Times Higher Education ranking. And the MIT is placed ranked number 2, and it's around 65,000. Harvard the same. So that's a huge burden for the students. The students end up as a graduate with a lot of debts. And we don't want that in that extent. So what we are talking here is about, here I do follow the argument of Michael. It's not a lot of thing. It's when you start on average about 1,500 in Switzerland, it's not really a lot. And even if you double these, it's still not a lot. We compare our situation in Switzerland often to France and Germany, and maybe Austria, where you pay less tuition fees. But even in Italy, it's about, on average, 2,500. In Great Britain, it's much higher. And in Poland and in our eastern country, Czechoslovakia, it's much higher than in Switzerland. So it's not really such a big issue if you would double or at least increase the tuition fee in Switzerland, and we should think about it more. It is a fair contribution or is not a fair contribution, and maybe we come afterwards to the discussion about what's the alternative. It's a apprenticeship or another education to have a fair share, burden sharing. Also of those people that have the privilege, we all have a privilege to study at the university in Switzerland, having free access to all different topics without numerous clauses, except at the medical school. We are unique in the world. You do not have to do some tests to really decide what you're going to study. And for that reason, we want to maintain these wonderful conditions in Switzerland. For that, at least, it's a fair burden sharing if the students do cover also at least a part of the cost.
Just one question. What do you say to those who answered in the survey that they will have some problems, they have to work more or even drop out of the study?
Of course, you have to react to the new reality. And this means that you have to work more. Many of the students have high-income parents that can easily afford the higher tuition fees. Others may work longer, but it's not, except in medical schools, it's very difficult to really have a job beside that. And maybe also in some topics at the university here. But in general, it's also a good experience to work during study time. We observe that many employers look at the CV and say, look, this person has additional competences, has gained competences in a different field, knows how to work, knows to have the responsibility, to take over the responsibility. And this is also a value for your CV afterwards, even if the tuition fees are lower or higher. My recommendation will be to work also during study time. It gives a wonderful experience and gives you also better chances after in the labor market.
Kathryn Wydler, you're a member of the Council of Zurich. I would like to ask you now, what is your position on this question on the tuition fees? Because at the end, the finances of the Canton of Zurich are very important for the university, more important than the tuition fees. But what are your thoughts on how the tuition fees should go? Should they go up? Should they stay where they are?
Well, I think a moderate increase of the tuition fees is acceptable.
Is the microphone on your? Press the button.
Okay. Do you hear me now?
Yes,
okay.
I think it's. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. Good evening. Well, I think from the part of the Mitte, I think for us, a moderate increase of the tuition fees makes sense. Also, when I think that I think for quite a while you did not increase the tuition fees at the University of Zurich, but I think it should be going in line with inflation. I wouldn't go to double and make it 3 times as high as ETH also, I think, did, you know. But when it's in line with inflation, it makes sense. And I think also the students, they should contribute a bit to the education they get. And that's fair. That's also fair because, I mean, the university, I mean, it's paid by taxpayers, you know, and a lot of them, they did not go to university. They did do it in another way. So, yeah.
Mm-hmm. Then let's go to Rochus Burcher, also member of the Council of Zurich and of the Education Committee. What is your take on the discussion?
First of all, good evening to everybody. I think tonight I won't leave us with many friends, I think, because the increase, it must increase the contribution fees. It has to, because your education is paid by taxpayers. And if you look at in the university, like Michael Schaepman said, we pay, as canton, we pay between 700 and 800 million Swiss francs every year to the university, net. This is the net version. And when you go on, this is something also a different way, like Lin Mi said before. We look on the money so that the debts won't increase. And the other one is, sometimes I think also the left party don't know where money comes from. It's just here. And this is then the part which the difference between left party and right party. Therefore, we have the Mitte. And hopefully they are going to the right side. But the part is no one will be stopped by increasing the fee. I say double, yes, this is no problem. Then if you double it, then you have 3,000, let's say, around. And if you look at what we pay for, in average, for a student, this is about 18 to 20,000 a year. This is not less. And when you then go what Rudi Minch said about the United States, I don't want it. I don't want a time like this. The world changed anyway. And even when you go to to work a little bit, that you can at least say, hey, I have done some experience. And this is the most part I'm looking for, especially when I'm looking for people working for us. I need people with experience. But when you go out by the end of a study, you don't have working experience. You have an experience of studying. You know a lot, theoretically, but the experience is missing. But when you work it somewhere, and I have 4 kids, 4 girls. One has been studying here in the university, psychology. Then I have 2 with normal apprenticeships. And then the youngest one, she's already 25. She won't ever, never, ever being in the first part of the work because she's ADHS and can't start in this part. So I have everybody, and I know what is going on. And I had also been to pay as a father, and I have 4 girls, and this is very expensive, especially when they have their own iPhone and whatever they need. And this is okay. I mean, studying is not something for fun. And you said also something about the dropout quote. I mean, the dropout quote, why? We have in Canton Zurich a scholarship. If the money is not enough, you can go to the scholarship, stipendium it's called. And this is, you can go there, and this will be helping those people who do not have enough money. We have that system. Just do it. Of course, we don't want have studying 20 years.
But just another question. Don't you think that 3,000 francs would be a social barrier for a lot of people of families that are not so well off? And yeah.
No, I don't think it will be a social barrier. It's a real fair contribution, because there are a lot of people working 8 to 10 hours, earning 4,000 or 5,000 Swiss francs. They pay tax, and with this tax, they pay you the studying.
Mainly Marti wanted to say something.
Well,
She has to.
I mean, I think it's also a little bit of, we have to be careful not to have too many cliches about study life. I mean, the system is very different from when I went to university, and with this bachelor master system that was created so the study length would decrease. And so people would actually have less time to work.
Indeed.
To work next to their studies. So that was an intentional reform. So you can't just tell the students to just go and work 50% or 60% or whatever. That's not that easy. And second of all, a lot of students work part-time. They work in their holidays, they work on weekends, they do internships, which are very badly paid, and everything to get experiences. I think they do contribute. And I mean, we already have an educational system that is reproducing social status. People who went to university and have children, their children are more likely to go to university than if you didn't go to university. We don't have a system that is very fair, and that doesn't start with tuition. That starts at the beginning, but the tuition can be another part that can prohibit talented people from realizing their potential. And I think that's a problem. We should not have just people who are come from rich families who can study. It should be education, and I don't mean just university, should give every person the chance to realize their talent and their potential.
Mr. Schaepman, and then an intervention from you.
Yeah, thank you very much. Let me clarify quickly 3 points. So I knew there's economically sound people on this panel, so I had to do some economical studies about the university. First of all, politics has decided that we are getting paid for our students only for what is called die Regelstudienzeit. So if our students have to work part-time, they have a tendency to study longer. That was a big debate when we introduced the Bologna model. Yes. So the Bologna model actually reduced significantly the study durations. We can argue whether it's for the better or for the worse. That's a separate discussion. But fact is, we're only getting paid for how long in general, it is envisaged how long you study. This is usually a bachelor and a master in 5 years plus half a year. So if you stay more than 5.5 years, we're not getting any money. You're taking away a place which may be used by someone else who would like to join the university. Now, that brings me to the point, if every one of you has children who study at this university, and I'm glad some of my children are here, they know that, for example, library working places on the weekend are always fully booked. So you wonder what all these students that have nothing to do will do in a library on a weekend. Well, I can promise you they study. So, which means that if we force them by higher tuition fee to earn higher own contribution, we just extend the study duration. Now, this might be a small or a big problem, we can argue about that, but the most important thing is when you finish your studies here at the university, you're earning more money than the average taxpayer in Switzerland, and you're refinancing by faster going to the market, you're financing your cost of the study more faster. So it's a fact. So let's try to make sure that everyone who studies at the university gets the chance to finish on time. That's the most important factor. The second point is tuition model comparison is a favorite sport of everyone. I mentioned in my introduction, our tuition fee has no business model behind. The American tuition fee model has a business model. They give you a baseball team, they give you a soccer team, they give you a dormitory, they give you a fully fledged support for the students. The $30,000 or $40,000 is part of the costs, of the total cost for your education. Now, we have two advantages in Switzerland. One, we say we are not supporting the students to find a flat. That's a big, big issue for all the students who try to live in the city of Zurich. But we think it's a competence that helps you to bring you further in your life. We are not compensating this search by asking for higher tuition fee. So we are in the Humboldt system, and almost all of Europe, except the UK and certain Swiss universities like HSG and USI, are in this Humboldt model. So I think we should be very clear, this model has been designed that you earn competencies outside of your studies. For example, you go part-time work, you find your own flat, you pay your taxes, your everything, you do on your own. We think these competencies are a competitive advantage in your life later. We can argue about that, but that's the big difference. So please do not compare 40,000 US dollar tuition fee at US university. If you do not believe that, please read an article which was recently published, which is called How the Ivy League, the best American universities, screwed up the American academic system. If you read that, you will feel very comfortable here in Switzerland. And the third point is your studies. So we made a very big study on looking at how much do our students earn when they finish their studies here. So on average, all our students earn 60,000 more taxable income than the median in Switzerland. Which means if taxation is roughly 1/3, so 1/3 of your income, you can say 20,000 Swiss francs per year, you're refinancing your studies. And you just said, you know, we're paying 18 to 22 or 23,000 per student. So after 5 years, 6 years, you can debate. You have already refinanced your studies and you're contributing to the big contribution of the Canton of Zurich to this university. So I think we should be very clear. If we look at tuition fee, we should look at your whole life cycle. The most important and critical point today is to bring you as fast as possible to pay Social Security, because there we have a big issue. So my goal is you finish in the normal study time that we envisage for you, such that you can go on the market. By the way, more than 95% of our students find easily a job, so there's no big unemployment rate. And please refinance our Social Security system as fast as possible. I think that's the biggest handle we have.
Okay, now your interventions. I don't know.
Yes, thank you very much. From the student point of view, we would like to elaborate on points mentioned by Mr. Minch and Mr. Rokus. You said about taxpayers. Well, aren't they also profiting from students? You know, from lawyers, from medical students, and so on. So of course, society do invest in students and do invest a lot, but doesn't we also, like society, profit in the long run, or even in a short term?
I mean, what I can say about these taxpayers, it's okay. The more they earn, the better it is. Huh? And but what you have also to say about the taxpayers when you finish the study, you have to start. And what you have been shortly written in the newspaper is that more students do not find a job, there will be quite a long time till they find a job and not in the way where the studied had been. This is also what has been shortly written in the paper, and I think was the NZZ as well as the Tagesanzeiger. But the part is, they do pay, of course, tax. But now you have also to think about, I mean, I'm a normal worker, and when I pay the tax, this is okay. But then on the other side, when I have a problem, first of all, I'm divorced. It was very expensive. I needed a lawyer, and he had so high hour rates.
But he pays taxes as well.
I paid his study. I don't know if it was really from him or her, but at least I paid this study, and I paid 500 francs per hour. And when you go then to correct your nose to a specialist, that I didn't do, but when this is, then you pay quite a lot in the medicine. We paid this guy or this girl or whatever it is, so that they studied this special subject. But then everything is increasing. You know what you have to pay every month for the Gesundheit in this way. This is also something you do not have to forget. They get the money from them who paid them the tax. This is...
Yeah. I would ask Mr. Schaepman first. You told the usual story that we are always told, that somebody who studied at the university will pay for the university afterwards. But is this true for someone who just works 40 or 60%? Is this true for somebody who works not in Switzerland anymore, in a foreign country?
Yes. So let's start with the second one. This we call that the solidarity effect, right? So just for everyone's information, a medical education costs about 300 to 350,000 Swiss francs, and we're currently approving 40% doctors from any other country than Switzerland. So for these 40%, for everyone we save 350,000 minus your tuition fee. Well, let's talk about fairness. So first of all, we profit largely by generating a knowledge gap in other countries. So we usually take in doctors from German-speaking countries because our patients, they, at least in the German-speaking part, they like German-speaking doctors, and Germany takes them from Hungary or Romania, and we generate a brain drain there. So if we talk about solidarity, we should actually educate 100% of the doctors that the market needs. So, and here I'm very grateful because the Canton of Zurich just recently has approved our project called Med 500+, which is increasing from 400 to 700 medical students. I will tell you, this is not cheap, but the result is it compensates a little bit for that fairness. Now we have 3 compensation models. One is the Canton of Zurich pays us the students, which is roughly currently 23,000 Swiss francs per person. If someone comes from a canton which is not the Canton of Zurich, we get a partial compensation without infrastructure costs. Therefore, Ernst Stocker, the financial responsible at the government of the Canton of Zurich, has recently said we are missing 100 million compensation from the other cantons, of which 60 million are infrastructure costs that are not compensated. Now, if we accept foreign students, they do not compensate at all. But if you look how many Swiss students, Swiss citizens are studying abroad, I would not even start about talking that, because if we say, well, it should be compensated, first of all, I love our foreign students because they add diversity. And second, there is a lot of Swiss students that study abroad where this question has also not been solved. So it's a trade that is almost neutral. So I would recommend not to touch these parts because it will lead to a very strange discussion.
What do you mean?
But the question is simple, and the question is, why should a society finance through taxpayers' money a university? And the answer is, we as a society want a return on investment. And this is what Michael Schaepman has mentioned. It's extremely important that students work after the study. The best way is 100%, not 50 or 60%, to really to pay back that initial investment. And you can clearly distinguish between bachelor and master. In the master study, it's quite obvious that there the private return on investment is rather big. Bigger than at the bachelor level. At the bachelor level, there's the private investment on the investment is about more or less also a society's gain of the investment. But at the master's side, the private return on that investment to make in a master's study is rather large. So why should not the students pay a bit for that education he or she has received at the university, which gave a lot of more money afterwards in the working field? And if you look at the situation, about $1,500 a year, but you're kidding, that this will really make a huge impact on the decision whether to study or not? I'm not really believe that. $1,500, it's the amount is too low. You could have a loan 5 years of below 10,000 debt after the study you can pay back instantly after you start working. So this is not really a threat to students. And my point is just we should have a fair deal to those not having the privilege to study at one of the best 200 universities in the world. This is a privilege. They're working hard, they pay taxes, and therefore it's also a good, it's a fair deal that students pay also a bit more. And my point to coming back to the initial statement, the tendency to work more should not be to finance this $1,500 additionally. You do not have to extend the working time to 70 or 80%. So $1,500 is just a bit more of money you have to earn. So working experience is that important also in nowadays life. The time are over that you can study up to 25 years old and then thinking about, it's time to start working somewhere. It's not a good idea. You should gain experience during your study time to be able to really instantly start after the study.
Kathryn, Wydler, there are universities where the tuition fees goes up after the regular study time. Mr. Schaepman said it is so important that you don't study longer than this, the regular time. So maybe the tuition fees should go up after 6 or 7 years.
I think they do that at the university.
They do in Zurich?
Yeah, in Zurich they do
but
that.
not enough?
Well,
not yet.
Yeah, well, as I said, I mean, I would say, double the tuition fees is really too high. Go with inflation, look at the inflation. I think St. Gallen did that, and I think that makes sense. There is a chance that students study longer if we go up with the tuition fee. I think that's true, and I don't want this to happen. Actually, I want you to go through your studies as fast as possible, and then start with your work, And of course, yes, I also think that you should work during your studies, but I assume most of you do that.
Marti?
I just think you use examples that a doubling of the tuition wouldn't be so bad, because you think of a student that comes from a privileged background, and you negate the experience that students that come from a working class background have, which have it stacked against them from the beginning and have a very, very high pressure not to go to continuing education, but to earn money very soon. So I think that is just, we've seen it in the introduction. I think that the burden, especially for low-income students or for students from low-income households, is disproportionately higher than for students from high-income households. And that's, I think, the problem for something that is just basically symbolically. And I think, I mean, there is also reasons why people work part-time, and the reason is childcare. People work part-time because they have to care for their children or for relatives, and that's why they don't work 100%. And and childcare, as we all know, is very expensive in Switzerland. So that's what, and it is mostly a private thing. So it's mostly women who have to do the childcare and work part-time after their studies, and it's hard for them to come back 100%. I would totally support policies that increase the possibility to combine work and families, but that's not what's been done here. So I think we should. I mean, if you have a system that would have very generous grants and scholarships, then you could think about raising the tuition for students from high-income backgrounds. But that's not the case. I mean, the tuition system in a lot of cantons are not generous. They're usually very complicated and bureaucratic. There's a lot of bureaucracy for poor people. And I mean, in the canton of Zurich, there was there are delays, and you have to wait for almost a year until you get to the money. I mean, so this is not a viable alternative. If you really want to have higher student tuitions, you would have to talk about higher stipends and higher scholarships.
Mm-hmm. You wanted to react, and then we will open for the public. Yeah.
So,
as well.
May I say first something? You have to be too long in Bern. We changed the system in Zurich, really. We changed it. We increased the speed that everybody can have a scholarship.
Last year.
No, we did it.
Yes.
We did it. We did it at least. And second is, I mean, I've been at the beginning of the scholarships. I have been there, so that we have been really looking that everything is going to be easy. I mean, this is just not right what you said about it. And I mean, as students, just think about how much money we do invest in buildings. In buildings. I mean, this we have also to discuss. Michael, he knows that I'm not very amused about the building which has been built up here then in Zurich. 600 million Swiss francs for one building for your students, made by whom? Herzog et de Meuron. I mean, 600 million. And then in Irchel, we have all to reinvest there, another 400 to 800 millions. This is just building. And we talk now here about an increase of the contribution to the fees from 1,500 to 3,000.
Okay, Mr. Schaepman, last word on that, and then we open for the public.
So the 600 million can be easily refinanced, because what politicians usually forgot to say, we have a new building, that's true, it costs 600 million. Half of the area we have to return our villas at Zurichberg. If you sell them on the market, you can tomorrow refinance the whole building. So Rochus, you have a task.
Okay, now.
No, but let me quickly say something. First of all, there is a very strong correlation between tuition fee and fellowships. And yes, in the sequence, as you mentioned, Minli, it was our students that complained about the complexity of awarding fellowships, which was taken up by politics and changed last year. So now it is faster. Is it good? Is a different thing. But I want to say that if you increase tuition fee, you have to increase the fellowship system in whatever proportion. Otherwise, you're losing people. I mean, I would still say, we have agreed in the Swiss system, we have an equitable access to education. So I think we should stick to that paradigm and then see and say, if tuition fees are increased, then we have to increase the fellowship system. It's very, very important.
Okay, we have a question here.
Also, please introduce yourself.
All right, my name is Daniel. I'm also a student. Well, I was a student here. And I missed the first part of this discussion, so I don't know if this has been brought up. But is there also like a possibility where less financially privileged students just pay less tuition and those who come from like better families pay more? Like the same way we do with taxes. People make more money, pay more taxes. People make less money, pay less taxes.
Mm-hmm. Thank you. How about a system where rich people are paying more tuition fees compared to others? What is the reaction of the panel?
They already pay a lot of more taxes. So, and they do not get any subsidies. So they pay the full cost of living of their sons and daughters. For them, at least it's partly of the financing is done.
Yeah, Mrs. Wydler, Kathryn.
Yeah,
That's true.
yeah, but
And this is also my argument that you can increase that. But part of that, parents can easily finance these $1,500 directly.
Yeah,
well,
Kathryn.
I wouldn't increase it because, I mean, we have scholarships for low-income families, and so I mean, we have something that will help actually these students to go through studies at university. So I mean, there is no reason to hire the tuition fees for rich families, and it's a lot of bureaucracy as well.
Marti?
I personally think that it's a benefit if students can choose freely what they want to study. If the parents will have to pay a lot of money, they're probably going to put a lot of pressure on you to study something that they think is good and not something that you are interested in. So I'm not sure that's a good idea. So I think you could talk about, I don't know, some increase in fellowships and a little higher tuition, but I don't want a system where students are totally dependent on the goodwill of their parents, because actually they are adults, and I think they should be able to make their own choices.
Mr. Schaepman, I would like to ask you something a bit different, because Rudi Minch was talking about the return on investment. If you agree with that, someone could argue, okay, then maybe the tuition fees for lawyers and for the medical school should be lower than for something different where you don't pay back after your studies.
Well, so fantasy is large when it comes to different models, how we could finance the university using tuition fee. But I would like to remind everyone that the agreement in the Swiss academic system is an equitable approach, access to education, which means cheap tuition fees. Now, you can have hours of discussion whether it should be scalable with income, with your later life on how much you earn. I think the most important thing is we're talking about the smallest number that is relevant for the University of Zurich. It's 1.7%. So let's try to see what happened to other systems where all this has been exercised. Now in the United States, when you look at Harvard, You know, the 50,000 tuition fee has led to the fact that all the rich avoid these because there's nepotism going on, which makes them avoid to pay tuition fee because the parents donate to the university. So they have suddenly had rich people, which I don't know whether it's true, but they say they're probably not being selected on their intellectual capacity, but they have been selected on the financial power of the parents. So I think we do not want that system.
Okay, let's take another question over there.
My name is Karim, and I study at ETH. And I think you made a lot of interesting points today, but that doesn't change that I vehemently disagree with the idea of increasing tuition fees. I already work, I think, 20 to 30 hours a week at the moment next to my studies, and I'm just in my second year right now. And an increase in tuition studies like they want to do at ETH, I'm a foreign student, I'd have to pay around 2,500 a semester. It's just not affordable to me. So telling me to work more, I find kind of ridiculous, frankly, because I can't work more than 20 or 30 hours a week next to full-time studies. And this is also going to automatically have me study longer. It's an unavoidable fact. And I also don't understand why we're comparing ourselves to the US. I mean, we're in Switzerland. Do we have to stoop this low? Do we have to compare ourselves to the United States, where almost nothing social really functions? Why do we not compare ourselves to Germany or Austria? And another question I had, and then I'm done. I love this country. I came here 2 years ago, and I really like being here. But I also have to honestly say, as far as I know, Switzerland does not have any real resources except for the brains here. And if we don't invest into educating them, and people who just can't afford studying do apprenticeships, then there's going to be brain drain, because people who can't afford to study here will study somewhere else and start working there. So I don't really see the point in not investing in our most important research, which is the brains of the people that live here.
This would be your question. Okay. How about the investment in education and tuition fees? Who wants to react? Yeah?
So it's very simple. The best investment is the University of Zurich. So Rochus said...
Not the ETH. So he should change to the university.
Well, they made a fundamental decision which was breaking the equivalency principle when they changed the tuition fee for foreigners. But you were in the parliament, you know much better than I. But Rochus said we are getting about 800 million taxpayers' money to this university, but the turnaround of this university is 1,800. So you may wonder, where is the other money coming from? So the best investment for the taxpayer in the canton of Zurich is you pay maximum 45% contribution to this university and you get 100 back. Now, if you look at the scaling effects, you invest 1 tax Swiss francs into a university, we generate added value roughly 5 to 7 times. So every Swiss franc first is doubled by the university, and then it generates a scalar of 5 to 8%. And the downside of that, so the externalities that the university is generating, you all know. It's about the shortage of living places for students, because now, with all these very well-educated people, rent went up, and international companies decided to settle in Zurich. And that's because of ETH and the university hospital, and our applied universities. So we have externalities that are positive. You know, you earn a lot of salary. We have negative externalities like the housing issues, but in total we generate a return on investment which is about a factor 5 to 7. We should never forget that. I mean, the cantons that do not have a university, they're jealous.
Over there is a question.
Okay, so my question, I'm Anastasia, study economics here, and my question would be, I just don't see the point, or No, it's a question. So why would you say that cutting funds in education, as Karim, I think, said, which I think, you know, the universities, they produce very important, like, it's an investment. Us students, we produce so much, like, income for Switzerland, and we are, like, human capital is the most important capital in Switzerland, and I just don't see the point in cutting funds in education that promotes something that creates a Mehrwert, I don't know the word in English.
Added value.
Added value for our country so much, and just funding stuff like weapons, for example, which I don't see how they are adding as much, you know. I know security and foreign policy, but I think cutting these funds, this is something so important, like I said, for the added value of our country. And I'm just asking more the politicians, what is your thinking process in approving a budget that is cutting from education, and will this stop? Because if you start with something,
Maybe I give first the question to Rudi Minch and then to the politicians.
Not the politician, but you're absolutely right in your argumentation. So cutting the expenses in research and development is not a good thing in the long run. So what we are discussing here is about tiny thing relative to the baseline. But in general, yes, in the long run, it is absolutely clear the ETH, especially, a bit also the University of Zurich, is a driver for innovation in Switzerland, and also the EPFL in Lausanne. These are wonderful institutions, and also the University of Zurich, that create this innovation center in Switzerland, attracting the Googles and the like to come to work here, and also to create added value in the industry. And this is the driving motor for future income and future well-being in Switzerland. So cutting is in general a very bad thing, but what we are discussing is about the thing that in Bundesbern, in the Federal Council, they are not able to really reduce costs, say salaries of the bureaucrats, say expensive in the agriculture sector and the like. And that's a problem. We should have maintained this debt break, yes, but in the future, I absolutely agree with your argumentation. It's a bad thing to cut expensive in the research and development field.
Some of the politicians want to, yeah?
Yeah, I would like to react here, because first of all, if it's 1,500 or 3,000, it is an investment in yourself. It's not giving the money to the university. It's an investment in yourself. Second is the part is almost now every country claims the same thing. The brain is the only resource we have, because it's not a lot anymore. For example, I Love Ireland, they have in Dublin the Trinity University. They say exactly the same. The only thing they have plus is they have Guinness. And the other part is, even for the school or the education, I mean, I speak only about Zurich. We pay 4.5 billion, that's Milliarden, huh? 4.5 billion every year. Every year we pay. And this is from 1,000 or 3,000, it's nothing.
Okay, we have a question here and then over there. Yeah.
Good evening. Zahar Morozov. I'm studying mechanical engineering at ETH, and I have a question about scholarships. You mentioned the universities in America with their high student fees. For example, Harvard. That was the example you brought up. When I applied to Harvard before coming to ETH, I calculated how much I would need to pay for the study fees, and the sum was surprisingly zero. The reason why it is zero is because they have need-on-based scholarships for everyone. Without questions, they give you the amount of money that they deem necessary based only on your family's monetary situation. And my question is, what are the concrete plans then for scholarships? If you're bringing up the high study fees in America, then let's bring up the scholarships of America. Where are they? What is the timeline? How many francs are going into those scholarships?
This is, many on the panel already said that scholarships and tuition fees are related to each other. Is there somebody who wants to react directly?
I mean, at the moment we pay from the Canton Zurich, we have about 40 million now in the scholarship inside, where we pay then to the students or who needs a scholarship.
But the largest fraction is going to the University of Zurich. So
yeah, that's right.
Okay.
That's right. And
the smallest fraction of these 40 million.
Yeah, and I mean, the people in the United States, when they have this scholarship, this high one, not many people get one there.
It's Milan-based. It's for everyone, for internationals as well.
Okay.
Yes, but
you
I
have
think
to apply.
System is
maybe you're accepted, and then
it's for everyone.
Who get applied?
That I didn't know. Okay.
Yeah.
Try to be careful. There's no economic data on whether we are losing students because of tuition fee or because of overall financial situation of the family. So, you know, we today, if you would ask me, should we, you know, subsidize with fellowships an increased tuition fee, or is that not changing anything because there's other people that will not even consider University of Zurich because they would not get it at all? We have no idea. So we need to be very careful. If we discuss that, then I think we should really ask and see how can we change that. And I know where we would change, and Stefan Wolter has given yesterday in his press conference some hints what is happening to the educational system. I think we should be extremely careful by saying, you know, which people are we actually losing? And we don't know today.
Is there any question over there? Oh, no.
The question has been answered, sorry.
But meanwhile, until he's up there, what we can also say is, for example, when you make an apprenticeship and then you work and then you make a bachelor or whatever it is, or a master in Schreiner als Beispiel. Schreiner is a woodworker. Carpenter, yeah. Then when you make this as a master in the carpenter, you pay 35,000 Swiss francs, 50% is paid by the state, and the rest he pays himself.
Yeah.
And he's not on the level of earning a money like
if he's good, he will be
a bank.
Like a sociologue also. Good. Over there.
My name is Eric. I study biochemistry at UZH. And I wanted to ask about the point of that we should carry more of the burden as well. So I get the argument behind it, kind of, but have you also considered that the burden is already getting higher just by cost of living, as has been mentioned, like by finding an apartment, for example? Even like the public transport, like everything is already getting more expensive. And the people that are working, for example, also have to pay more to AHV, everything. Like, it is already getting harder to study and live. So I think that should also be considered in all of this.
Maybe Rudi means the burden of the cost of living?
These are the true costs, not the 1,500 bucks. Cost of living, it makes a difference. The expenses are high in Switzerland. The flat rates, the food prices due to our wonderful agriculture policy, and all the like is quite expensive. That's true, and has increased over the past 10 years, obviously. And here, this creates the problems whether a person from a low-income family decided to start a university study. And for that reason, it's important that we provide grants by the public state, that we do not lose too much talent. Yes.
Yeah, over there.
Hi, my name. Hi, my name is Luca. I'm a PhD student here. My question is, we keep coming back to this idea that 1,500 francs is not a lot. What are you basing this on? Is this just personal assessment of the situation? Do you have any data to back this up? Where are you coming from with this?
I think it's again to those who are advocating a higher tuition fee to react.
I mean, why double and so on? I mean, the part is 1,500. You can also say triple. You can say. I mean, most of it is just done like this. Unfortunately, huh? I mean, unfortunately, I pay also my tax, and I have to pay quite a lot of tax. And then I ask also, why do I have to pay that? Huh? But I mean, you can also say only 500 plus. But what I have also to say, the increase is only at the moment for the ETH students. This is the government Switzerland. But we hadn't it up to now in our commission. Huh? I mean, this will be then a fight between Kathryn and me. I will have it tripled, and she wants to say, oh, make only half of it, and so on. But this
That's not true, huh?
But this is, why is it doubled or not? This is just because it's less, there it's 4. It's only that.
There's no calculation behind it, absolutely not. However, the comparison is there. You see at the University of St. Gallen, for example, where I've studied, I paid at 30 years ago or something like that, the same tuition fees as you do pay today. And it was not really an argument whether to study or not during that time. I think it's back to the initial statement. It's a question of fairness, also regarding to those they are working, having not the privilege to study at the university, and they pay close to all their education by themselves. There you could argue the same. Should the government pay 100% to those? But it's they pay a lot of. Marocco has mentioned it, about 50% of higher education, and by themselves, and to have this balance in the society, that you have a privileged group, you have to explain that also to the others in the society, and for that it's also a fair point to increase the tuition fees.
Yeah, Mr. Schaepman first, and then the question over there. Yeah.
So your question was to the point, right? There's no method or model behind the amount of tuition fee. And that's a big disadvantage because it cannot be explained. Therefore, everyone is doing a guessing game on how much it could be. What you can see in Switzerland is we have 2 universities. They have a lower base funding, and they were generated because they wanted to have a compensation deal. And that's the University of Lucerne and the University in Ticino. So in Ticino, they have high tuition fee in order to build walls against those that are, migrating from Italy to study in Ticino. So I think the University of Basel does not have that, and EPFL recently had this issue where they said we have more than 40% foreign students from France, so we need to do something. We want to limit the number of students. So the problem is we have to defend the value, which is equitable access to education. And we're violating this whenever we change these rules. Now there's tons of compensation discussions, which are fine, but I would like to say, first, I think Switzerland had to decide that we diverge from that model. And second, then we would have to build an economic model on tuition fees, which says, for what are we actually using it? Today, it's going to the base financing.
Mm-hmm. Over there.
Thank you. Just to the numbers, because apparently you don't have numbers. From myself, the budget per year, the tuition fees is about 10%. So
1.7.
Is it not a lot to double that? So it's 20% of my budget just tuition fees? Is that a ridiculous number? Low?
Who wants to react? I think we have discussed that. Oh.
His calculation is right.
The lady over there.
Some people keep saying that the education is a privilege. Don't you think education should be accessible to everyone and exactly not be a privilege, so just the ones earning a lot of money can afford it? Yeah.
Yeah, that I can say easily. Education is for everyone possible and accessible. For everyone. We have the possibility to finance it. And even about the scholarship, when it's not enough, and if the parents have enough money, then it's okay, then it's no problem. I mean, just for the guy just up there, just one question. Because it's the idea he gave me, should the tuition fee on the normal education studies be, like say, studying medicine? I mean, we have this 500 plus that I don't know, and I agreed with it. And should a medicine student pay more fee than philosophy or psychology? That is also possible, but then it's not only, in a way, everybody has to increase from 1,500 to 3,000, because this is then all over. This is the question back.
So I get a sign from the hosts that the time is off. Thank you very much for your questions, for your contributions. We have to discuss these things, especially because there is no economic model behind it. We have to discuss these things in our society, maybe also with those who are not at the university. Those were not on the panel and not on the floor. So try to discuss this with other people. We will find some solutions, as we always do as a democratic society. Thank you very much. Have a nice evening. Thank you for coming. Thank you, and all the best.
We are still not over. Thank you very much for this fruitful discussion. We're really happy to have you here today. Thank you very much for your insights, for your questions, but we are not over. We have just 5 minutes, quick announcements. Thank you very much.
Yes, don't have a nice evening yet, because now that we have listened to different ideas, it is finally time for us to act and do something, which is why we have conducted an open letter, which we will be sending to the Parliament, the Conference of Cantonal Governments, as well as Swiss universities, which is basically a committee of different rectors from different universities, in which we ask them not to increase the tuition fees as students. You can find this letter right here in German and in English. I'll give you a few minutes to either read it or maybe you can just photograph it. But we will also be showing it afterwards. Yeah. And all attendees will be able to sign it, at the entrance.
Thank you very much, Vesselina. And now, just before we go to the most important part of our panel discussion, apero with networking, we would like to again point out to our sponsors. We would like to point out to Reddy that provided today all the focus photos that many of you already drank today. They do provide some help with preparation for your exams. They do have interactive cards, notes, mock exams, and you can find them again at the entrance of the room. We highly encourage you to do so and grab some flyers. They also do have some discounts specifically for our panel discussion. Also, again, we would like to thank to our long-standing partners, to Academic Fraternity Zurich and to Academic Fraternity Welfen for their support. We are very grateful for their support, and we invite all of you to speak with representatives of these unions. They do sit right there. They meet on a weekly basis and discuss all these relevant topics, be it also increase of tuition fees in some cozy atmosphere with beer. And now, finally, no joke, before we go to apero, I would like to thank to our co-organizer, to Vesselina, for helping organizing this event. Thank you very much. And of course, I would like to thank to our big beautiful and very friendly team of efficient governance initiatives that helped to organize this event, be it transport, be it presentation, be it apero, be it invitation. Thank you all very much. On these photos you can see our big team. We start with Miron, then with Michel, Julia. On the down right we can see Adrian, Raphael, Andre, and last but not least, Gustavo. Thank you all very much, guys. We did a nice event. Thank you very much. Thank you all very much. And now we invite you to our apero in Lichthof Nord. See you there, and don't forget to sign our open letter to Federal Parliament. Thank you.